Know, like, and trust. That's the framework for turning a prospect into a paying client, right? They have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. But what if that's actually keeping you broke once you've turned them into a client? Because I think one of the biggest bottlenecks that I faced as an entrepreneur was the trust problem. And I call it the trust problem because simultaneously you instill this idea that your client can only trust you while also perpetuating that same false idea to yourself, which means that you don't delegate because you don't think anyone can do it as good as you. You don't think you can trust anyone to handle the tasks that would free up more time for yourself. And so it keeps you broke. You see, there's a different approach to client retention and client acquisition. When you're acquiring a client, you may go about your approach differently than once you have acquired it and you're just retaining that client, right? You're in the relationship management phase, the relationship enhancement phase. And you've probably done a great job at putting yourself out there, showcasing your personality. People resonate with you, they resonate with your story, they resonate with what you can do for them. And they're gladly willing to pay you for your services because they know, like, and trust you. But once it gets to that point, you tell yourself that you're the only one that they know, like, and can trust. And in that process, you turn yourself into the very bottleneck that keeps you from adding more revenue to your business, from scaling your business up, from focusing on the bigger vision, and from reclaiming your time. I know this because this is exactly what I did when I first started out in business. I thought that people were so invested in me and in who I was that I had to be the one to do everything. I had to be the one to manage the client relationship. And that really shifted the way that I saw myself because I now saw myself as CEO and employee at the same time. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work because you'll find yourself in more of an employee role and identity than you will the CEO role because of the fact that you're doing so many tasks that an employee would do. Now, it's interesting because when your client is a prospect, they get to know you, they get to like you, and then they trust you. But the change that you are missing is the fact that they trust you.
Oh,
And you're like, Caleb, what do you mean? I know they trust me. That's why I have to do everything. No, 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 no. Listen to what I'm saying. What you're not recognizing is that they trust you. They don't trust you to do the job. They don't trust you to be on every meeting, on every site, on every class, whatever it is that you do. They don't trust you to do that. They trust you. And I don't even think you trust you, which is unfortunate. They trust you more than you trust you. Let me elaborate, because this may get a little confusing. They don't trust you to do the job. They trust you to deliver the result. So however you deem fit to deliver that result, as long as you've built up that trust, they will trust you to do it. Where you go wrong is that you think that by them trusting you means that they're entrusting you with the entire responsibility. And you put that on yourself because that's not what they ever said when they became a client. Never. You created that for yourself in your head. That was something you did. You made yourself the bottleneck by doing that. You have to remember, they trust you. But you begin to instill a belief in them that they should trust you to do the job. And they do because they trust you. So if they trust you and you only trust yourself to do the job, so be it. The client is going to trust you regardless. They're going to trust that you're going to be able to get them the result. So if you believe that you can only trust yourself to get the job done, the client will too. But if you trust and believe in yourself that you can delegate this to other people, you can trust other people to get the job done, the client will too. Because they trust you. And it's so interesting how easily you can just, in that split second, take their trust and misguide it from your own interpretation. Because essentially, if you think about it, that's what you're doing. You're misguiding their trust, unless you actually want to be an employee in your own business, unless you actually want to work the 80+ hour weeks by doing absolutely everything in your business. Unless you never want to delegate, you never want to have time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, a team and systems that allow you to let the business run without you having to be there, that allow you to step away and focus on the bigger vision. Unless you don't want any of that and you literally want to become an overworked employee in your business, then you don't realize you're actually misguiding their trust. And it's dangerous because you don't recognize it. Because you're misinterpreting their trust. Therefore, you're misguiding their trust by placing it entirely on yourself. But you have to recognize that they trust you. So you have to trust in yourself to know that you have the lead on how to get the job done. But I don't think you even trust in yourself enough to know that you have the lead to get the job done, which is why you do everything instead of leading, right? And it's a facade. You say, oh, well, Caleb, I'm leading myself. Are you? Really? Or are you just following a set of mechanisms in your mind that are based off of survival because you're scared that if you do give this responsibility to somebody else, now you'll have to be a more effective leader because now you're not only responsible for the client, but you're responsible for somebody else as well. You have to get to a point within your mind, within your mindset, within your identity to know that you have authoritative control and lead over delivering results to your client. And until you can get to that point, you will always believe that you are the employee at the mercy of your client. But guess what? Your client didn't hire an employee. They hired a business. Hopefully you have your LLC or, your business is registered, even if you're outside the US or however business structures form outside of the US. Hopefully it's registered and you have your formation, and that is what you use to invoice clients, to close clients, and they're working with them and they didn't hire you as an employee. Because if that's the case, why are you allowing the client to dictate how things should go? And you're saying, well, Caleb, I'm not. I'm the one that's delivering the results. I'm the one that's doing this, that's doing that. But you have to remember, they trust you. So if they trust you and you have relinquished your leadership in terms of recognizing the responsibility that you have to lead, not to just deliver the result, but to lead as the CEO, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur. You're misguiding their trust. And now they have the leverage because you're coming at it from a frame of believing that it is all on you. Now, granted, it is all on you because you're the business owner. If shit fails, it's your fault. If it goes great, kudos to you. But it's not all on you to get the job done. It's all on you to be the most effective leader within your business and to deliver the results that you promised the client. But it is not on you to take the full responsibility of how everything gets done and taking care of every single operation. In fact, you're actually probably hurting their results. And you say, well, Caleb, I built a really good relationship with my client. I think if I brought somebody else in, it would just like, they wouldn't feel comfortable. They wouldn't do this. But that's bullshit. Like I said, it goes back to you not being an effective leader. And when I say this, I'm not saying this harshly just to you. I'm saying this to myself because these are things that I have literally gone through. I've had to literally tell myself in the mirror to make changes. So when you recognize that they trust you, right? Prospect knows you, they like you, they trust you. Now it is on you to effectively lead the approach. And you know what effectively leading the approach looks like. You just don't do it. Either for sake of comfort, for ease of, processes. It's easier for you to just do it than to try and train someone else or to, give that responsibility to someone else. You don't want to take a dip in profit margins for 3 to 6 months so that way you can actually scale and add 6 figures of revenue to where at that point that sacrifice in profit margin is negligible. So there are some fundamental things that you don't want to do, but it's because of your mindset and how you see yourself. Because if you truly saw yourself as the leader of this approach for your newly acquired client at the beginning of the relationship, they would trust you regardless of what you did. Regardless of if you showed up to a single shoot or not to a single whatever it is you do. I say shoot because I own a video agency. But whatever it is that you do, from the moment that they became your client, if they never saw you again other than a monthly check-in, if you believed within yourself that you were the leader of this approach, they would trust you and they would have no issues with it. But the issue comes into play when you don't recognize that, right? You misguide and you misinterpret their trust and you place it upon yourself because you think that you're the one of a kind and the only one that can do these things, which is another story for another video and, us working through that in another time. But when you do that, you don't realize that it's at that moment that you've started the relationship on the wrong foot. And now trying to correct that relationship in the middle of it, you feel conflict. You feel like, oh man, they're so comfortable with me now. They say that they only want me there. I don't know if I can just up and put somebody else. I don't know if I can just up and do this, up and do that. Well, the best bet is to start off the relationship with the right foot. That is the best bet. The second best bet, if you're already in that relationship and now you're trying to shift it, is to shift their perspective, right? Once you shift your perspective and you're like, okay, yeah, I know I have to change this dynamic of the relationship so that way I can reclaim my time. I can focus on the bigger vision. I can scale. I can achieve true financial location freedom, time, get my time back, add more revenue to the business, really build out systems, have a team, be able to delegate, be able to orchestrate, the actual mission of this business. Now that you've gotten to that awareness and that clarity, you have to shift their perspective, because once you can get yourself to recognize that you are the leader of this approach with this particular client and with all of your other clients, you have to know that every decision that you make is in their best interest. So therefore, if you make a strategic decision that is going to be in their best interest, even if that means removing yourself from directly working in capacity with them, you have to be able to shift their perspective to see the value in that. So it goes from being needed to being valuable. You should not be needed in your business. You should be valuable in your business because of what you bring to the table with your approach and how you lead it effectively. That is the true mark of you stepping into actual entrepreneurship. And you're done being a freelancer, or you're done being an employee within your own business. That is the first step. So you have to remember, they trust you. So the question becomes, what are you going to do with that trust? Are you going to misguide it, misinterpret it, take it for granted by placing it all upon yourself? Or are you going to step up to the call of actually being the leader that can effectively lead this approach in the best way possible and set the tone from the beginning and actually steward their trust properly? It's a question I want you to ask yourself and I want you to think about, because once you can get to that point in your mind and you can recognize that, making those decisions are easy. Easy. Make them like that. And there's no pushback from clients. And even if there is pushback, you're able to shift the perspective in a way to where they become appreciative, because they know that what you're doing is in their best interest. So I don't want you to spend 2026 wasting another year being an employee in your business, operating like a freelancer, and moving from the identity of survival. I want you to truly step into the leader that you are. And it starts with recognizing that when you get a new client, first they knew you, then they began to like you, and now they trust you. Don't waste another year. Because this year that could be wasted on being an employee in your own business could also be that same year that you scale it to 7 figures. Could also be that same year that you finally gain location and financial and time freedom. And now you can spend time with your family. And now you can spend time with your kids. And now you can go on a 2-month vacation and the business is still running. And now you can actually have the true impact that you've been wanting to have, because you can focus on the bigger vision and you can serve at a much higher capacity. But we can't get to those higher level visions if we don't see ourselves that way and we continue to operate from a freelancer, from being the employee inside of our own business. So make that decision, because I don't want you to waste that time again. I don't want you to waste another year. It's 2026. We have all of the resources available to us to make it happen. It's an identity thing. It's a mindset thing. So just remember, they trust you. Now you just have to know what you're going to do with it.